Meatloaf Cat says, can I call a waiter in a restaurant when I need help? My friend said it's not friendly. I could only use excuse me. Is that correct? Generally speaking, and I'm going to speak for the United States. Generally speaking, in the United States, we tend to use excuse me rather than waiter. If you say waiter, I wouldn't say that it's not friendly. It's just not nearly as common as excuse me or even hello. Hello or excuse me when you want to get the waiter's attention. Now, this is an interesting cultural thing because in every culture there's a different way to get a waiter's attention. So, for example, I lived for about 4.5 years in China, and one of my favorite things about China is the eating experience. Totally, overall. Food is amazing. It's just, the interactions are just simpler. And when you need the waiter, you just kind of yell out, waiter, in Chinese. And then the waiter comes over. You don't really worry about anything else. It's awesome. And also, you know, sharing food is a lot easier. You don't have my food. In the American sort of cultural eating system, you have to make a choice. You have to commit to food. So when you eat in, for example, China, you get a bunch of little dishes, and then everyone can kind of pick up what they like. And if you don't like one thing, you just ignore that. But usually when you eat in the United States, you choose your entree, and that is your entree. And the idea of saying, oh, I don't like this entree, and then grabbing from somebody else's is kind of like, what are you doing? You can grab food from my plate? Very rude in America, but not in China. It's very totally okay, normal, expected. In fact, grabbing food from some plate, from a small plate, and handing it to someone else, very polite. So personally speaking, I would rather eat in China than the United States. I think they've got a better system figured out, just my opinion. Also, getting the waiter. Getting the attention of the waiter. In the United States, we need to do it in a certain way, and it's kind of cautious. So you have to look for the waiter. If they're walking away from you, there's really nothing you can do. They don't see you, which is kind of frustrating, right? When they're walking toward you, what you might do is something like this. You might look at them in a certain way that lets them know that you want to get their attention. If they're very near you, you might say, excuse me, hello? Like that. Excuse me, hello? You could, if you wanted to, say waiter, but you wouldn't say waitress. So that's where it gets a little weird, because saying waitress sounds strange. Waiter? Well, what if it's a waitress? Okay, so that gets weird, and that's why we tend to avoid it. I think that's why we tend to avoid it. So instead we say, excuse me, hello? Like that. If they're near. But you can't raise your voice above a certain level. So the most common thing to do is to just get their attention with a gesture. They're coming toward you, you see them, and you make a stupid face like that, and then you put your finger up or you put your hand up like that, and you sort of make sounds and make yourself look like an idiot. That's what we tend to do. Now, there are some gestures where you can sort of do this and say, I want the check. That helps. That's actually very useful because you can do that at a distance. But overall, I find it a bit awkward. The whole dining thing in the United States, especially at restaurants, is very interesting and something that we could talk about for probably much, much more, about how to tip and all of that stuff. It's very complicated. There are a lot of norms, and how do you split the check with someone else? I recently had dinner with a bunch of people, and just the process of figuring out how everyone's going to pay for what is insanely complicated. And I don't think anyone's really figured out how to do it without a lot of awkwardness. It's amazing to me that we haven't figured out a better system. Anyway, thanks for the question, Meatloaf Cat. If you guys have any others, let me know. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button, of course, subscribe, and check out my full courses in the links in the description.